Question 4. What sort of decisions are affected by your atheism? None, really. Some occasionally what kind of YouTube video I'm going to make. That's about as far as it goes, really. It's not that significant to me. As I said, I'm an atheist by default, in that I was never raised in a religious household or in a culture where any particular religion is that pervasive, and from the earliest age I was exposed to various different perspectives on this matter and on other matters, philosophical, scientific, and so on and so forth. I was never programmed with any particular preconceptions in this regard. So I've grown up regarding the stories of the Bible as no different from the stories I found in my books of Nordic mythology. And thus far I've not been given any good reason or argument to regard them as anything other than that. And it came as a surprise to me, an unpleasant surprise actually, when I was in university, when I found that there were people who actually believed that the Noahic flood happened, that dinosaurs existed with human beings, and that there's all of this structure of apology trying to legitimize what is evidently cannot be taken as an account of literal events. It just cannot. When people come to me and it's one of the reasons I will not argue. I will not argue with creationists. I will not argue with someone who believes that the Noahic flood happened. You may as well. I would not take them any more seriously than if someone came to me and tried to argue that Dante actually descended into hell to write, and then that the Inferno is an actual account of that. I would not take them any more seriously than if someone came to me and said that Hansel and Gretel is actually an account of actual events. It's absurd to me in so many ways, and I don't see why that position is worthy of respect at all. I don't see why anyone should give it any credence. It should be. That's not to say that it shouldn't be considered. It should be, but that's the problem. The moment you start to consider it critically and without the intention of seeing it disproved or approved, it crumbles to bits, to tiny little bits. And I think it does. That kind of literalist reading of the Bible. I like the Bible. I like its stories. Obviously there are parts of it, the behavioural tenets I think are abhorrent. But there are stories that I think are beautiful. I love Revelations. I think its transcendental and metaphysic imagery is some of the best you're going to find in a mythology. It's unique in that regard. I think it suggests a certain surrealism that many mythologies just simply don't have. I think it's quite beautiful. And I think that trying to impose literalist interpretations on that book, or on many of the books of the Bible, does them a massive disservice. It misses the point. Especially when you consider the nature, even if you believe in God and in the biblical God, look at the way God manifests himself in the Bible. Look at the way, if you believe Jesus was God, for example, how did Jesus give his lessons? He told stories, he told parables. In that regard, God is a storyteller. Therefore, it's not a great stretch of the imagination to regard much of the rest of the Bible as, even if you are a Christian, even if you believe that the actual God exists, it is not necessary to believe that the Bible is literal at all. And I think doing so causes it does yourself a disservice, and I think it does the books a massive disservice as well. I think it does humanity a disservice, quite frankly. But what kind of decisions are affected by my atheism? Well, I can't think of anything. I mean, I have friends from so many different cultural backgrounds and have so many different beliefs. Catholics, Jehovah's Witnesses, Muslims, pagans, many atheists and skeptics and mystics and all manner of people. It's not something I consciously think about. It's just something that has application for me. And that's all. The only time it becomes active is when I see my rights being infringed upon, or the rights of others being infringed upon because of the religious beliefs of others. That's the only time it becomes active, and then that's when it becomes part of the decision-making process. Now, the last question I had a little bit of difficulty with, because I'm not sure I understand. What is more important to you? Acquiring as many true beliefs as possible, or not acquiring as many false beliefs? I think one follows from the other necessarily. I mean, belief is a thorny issue for me. It's an unusual word because I don't really believe much, to be honest. I consider the legitimacy of particular positions. I operate in a state of wonderful uncertainty. For example, I don't necessarily believe that evolution is true. I think thus far that it's the best answer we have to the diversity of life on this planet. I think it has the most evidence behind it. I think it is the theory that is most likely going to turn out to be true. But I don't have any emotional investment in it. If it doesn't, it doesn't, and that's fine. It means we go back to the drawing board. It doesn't mean that what the creationists like to assert is true. I am more than willing, whenever I can, to put down whatever position I happen to hold, given a good argument or evidence to the contrary. That's the position I hold. But I don't think it's possible to stand in a state of absolutism. I find absolutism to be, or certainty, particularly with regards to metaphysics, to gods, to spirits and whatnot, to be the most illegitimate and damaging position anyone can have. Which is why I have a problem with religions as they were. It's not the same as saying that I have a problem with belief or with concepts of God. I think the most legitimate concepts of God and of spirituality are the personal ones, the ones where people say, I think it's this, I based on my experiences, this is what I think is so. But religion means quite literally the binding together beneath common belief, and I find that to be rather illegitimate. I think that we have to acknowledge that intellectually we as human beings are on our own. We are on our own in our own heads. We're born alone and we die alone. And that it's our business to determine what is and what isn't, or what seems to be and what seems to be not. And to change. I think one of our weaknesses as a species is that we are resistant to that kind of fluidity. We'd like to have these structures by which we operate, which is a limitation of the way our brains operate, unfortunately. We need schemas in order to conduct our behaviour, and unfortunately they tend to become entrenched and become a part of personal self-definition. And this is another problem of religions specifically as ideologies. They tend to inform the adherents' self-definition after a while because of the way they impose themselves, and also because of the ease they provide. Religions provide schemas of behaviour, of perspective, of belief, and they just simply say all of this other stuff that might be going on in your head, these questions, this doubt, is unnecessary, you don't need it. Everything, as long as everything is funneled through this particular lens, then you're okay. And I find that to be lazy. I find it to be very lazy. The kind of faith and belief, particularly with regards to metaphysics, that I can respect is that which is personal. I don't want to delve too deeply into my own metaphysic perspectives or my perspectives on metaphysics because we'll be here all day. But yes, that's about as well as I think I can answer that one. Thank you very much indeed. Now, I've subscribed to your channel on the basis of these questions. I think they're very, very interesting, and it was nice to have something to gnaw on.